Hey everyone, this is Ethan. Now I know I said that I was going to record the Ravens video last night, and I did. But for some reason when I uploaded it onto YouTube, the sound did not match up with the way my mouth was moving. And I had already made it clear in that video that I wasn't going to tolerate that in future videos because I know that's been a problem. So I'm re-recording Baltimore now, and then I'm going to do I think Detroit's. So both those will be going up very soon on Scar Draft, which will be awesome. And then tonight I'll still do my regularly scheduled Atlanta, but it might go up later. Anyway, the Ravens, in my original video, I mentioned a book, and I want to mention it again because this book is great. It's called Next Man Up by John Feinstein. It came out a while ago. I think it covered the year after Bowler was picked. Maybe the year after Bowler's rookie year, somewhere in that range. It was after the Patriots had won a Super Bowl, because I remember that they talked all about Tom Brady and the field they played on, how Gillette Stadium is basically a mess, which it was. But anyway, it's a sensational book, and it's all about the Ravens, and it really lets you get inside the view of guys who run an NFL front office and guys who sort of do this job on a daily basis. And it's a really interesting perspective to sort of get. And Ozzie Newsome, mad respect for what he's done in Baltimore. Is a great, great manager of men and a great manager of talent. He really is able to look into the players, and he has really good perspective on who's going to be good, who's going to be bad. And one thing that you cannot fault Baltimore for being is true to their board. They will stay true to their board pretty much until they get later in the draft, when they may decide to deviate a bit because they're going to target certain positions, certain niches. Like, say, in this book, they talked about targeting a kick returner. So they knew that with one of their picks late in the draft, they were going to get a kick returner. And honestly, that's sort of philosophy that teams like San Diego should maybe use a little bit more, since I know that that's a team that needs a gunner terribly badly, and they really haven't gone for one in recent drafts. So you think maybe that in this draft they think differently. I hope they do anyway. Anyway, looking at Baltimore, there are three guys who sort of just jumped out at me as possible first round picks. The first one is someone who I might think might go a bit earlier than will be reachable for Baltimore unless they trade up, which is definitely a possibility. And that's Brandon Harris out of Miami. Brandon is a good cornerback. I think that he's probably going to be the third one taken after Peterson and Amakamara in this class, just because Jimmy Smith, who's another guy who I think Baltimore could take, has character issues. I think he'll go a little bit earlier than Baltimore's pick, though. I think that he's going to go somewhere in the 16 to 20 range, which means that unless Baltimore trades up and he is obscenely high on their board, which they did with Mike Oher a couple of years ago, I think that that would be the only scenario where they would take him. I don't think he's going to slip. If he does, then he would be the pick, in my opinion, if he does slip to 26. But if not, he fits what they do. He's a cornerback who can play man. He can get up on his receiver. He can do whatever you need him to do, and they need a cornerback really badly. So I think that that's a possibility. Another guy, as I mentioned, Jimmy Smith, is someone else who I could see going to Baltimore. And he is a really good fit because the Ravens have shown in the past a willingness to take risks on character if the guy is talented. Sergio Kindle, a lot of people thought he was a first-round pick at the outset, even on draft day. People were shocked when he didn't get drafted in the first round. And then all this stuff comes out about Kindle and having issues with narcolepsy, falling asleep at team meetings, just some not-so-savory things that nobody really wants to hear about when you are a top draft prospect. So I think that the fact that the Ravens are still willing to take him really speaks to their philosophy in general. And I think that Jimmy Smith, he doesn't have nearly the same issues that a Kindle had. So he could definitely be a pick. Now, the third guy is the guy who I've been mocking to the Ravens a lot. He's the guy who I keep hearing connection with him, the guy who makes a ton of sense with Baltimore, especially with their hybrid 4-3-3-4 defense that they like to play. and that man's Muhammad Wilkerson. Now, there's actually another name that I've been banding about along with Wilkerson. That's Phil Taylor out of Baylor. And those are the two guys. Taylor, sort of a late addition, as in today, he was someone who I thought of. But those are the two guys who I think I could see the Ravens really looking at hard at 27 if Harris isn't there. And Smith at this point could go 23 to the Eagles, so I'm not so sure he's going to be there either. Weighing the pros and cons, Taylor's a bit more typical of guys they've taken, just a big load who has the versatility to play defensive tackle, defensive end. And he reminds me a bit more of Haloti Ngata than Wilkerson does. The thing that Wilkerson has, though, is that he's a bit more explosive than Taylor, and the fact that Ngata's already on the roster and Terrence Code is on the roster as well makes Phil Taylor a bit more redundant in my mind than a Wilkerson would be. I definitely think that those two are guys who I would focus in on, for sure, at the spot for the Ravens. But, gun to my head, I'd probably give Wilkerson the slight nod over Taylor. And I think that Wilkerson could also end up going a little bit earlier, which would make this pick easier for Baltimore, because Taylor would make a ton of sense for them. So, overall, if they don't take a cornerback early in the first round, guys like Johnny Patrick would be ideal later on. Patrick is a guy who I think is a little bit underrated, because his only flaw that I've seen in terms of watching tape, or his biggest flaw, the rest are sort of minor, is his tackling. He doesn't wrap up well. But if you're playing a boundary corner position, sort of like what the Ravens run on defense, tackling is not only fixable, but it's a little bit less of an issue because you can push a guy out of bounds a lot easier than, say, playing him inside the slot. And the Ravens already have a slot corner in Chris Carr. They would play whoever they draft on the outside a lot more. So I think that Patrick would be a very good fit in Baltimore. He's another guy who I could see Philadelphia going after in the second round, but he would be a really good fit in Baltimore. Hope he doesn't go there, actually, because he'd be a really good fit in Baltimore. I'm not a huge fan of the Ravens because I'm a Patriots fan. Apparently we have some rivalry. I never really bought into it, but Ravens fans always yell at me, so. I did go to the game this year, though, the first game in Gillette, the one that went into overtime, and it was a great game. I enjoyed that one. Anyway, if they take a secondary player in the first round, they could go defensive line later. And one sleeper who I've heard a lot about recently in terms of rising up boards, Frank Curse out of Alabama A&M, I believe. Yes, Alabama A&M. Had to double check that. In the 5th or 6th round territory, the Ravens do like to take projects from smaller schools. I mean, Clarence Moore is the guy who's brought up in Next Man Up as a project from a smaller school, and also Roderick Green as well, two smaller school guys. And then even last year, Ramon Harewood was a smaller school guy they took a project pick on. Frank Curse is an athletic freak, and he would be a great pick later in the draft for them if they decide to go that route. One more thing I want to add. I think that there's a very good chance that the Ravens look for a quarterback as a backup. And they've liked mobile guys in the past. Omar Jacobs, Josh Harris, Troy Smith. And that seems to be a sort of trope that they like because these guys are guys who succeed at the college level. And they could also possibly do something at the pro level. So Tyrod Taylor would be a really good pick for Baltimore later in the draft. And his stock is a little bit low because there are some red flags, but Baltimore is the exact type of team that would take a risk on him. And he would be a great fit in Baltimore as a backup to Joe Flacco. So I think that would be a sensational marriage of talent and fit. And honestly, that would be the one pick for the Ravens that I would be closest to saying, if he's there and the situation's right, that's going to happen. So I think that that's something to keep an eye on for sure. I will be getting other videos up today. I think I'm going to do Detroit now because they should go before Miami, I suppose. And Atlanta will be done later tonight, hopefully. And hopefully I'll be on Scar Draft later tonight. So otherwise, I guess I'll talk to y'all later. Hope you like the Ravens. Fun team to look at. Feel free to tweet me if you want to talk. And yeah, bye.